Welcome back to Divorce Talk and More. I'm very excited to have Lisa Zeiderman here with me today. She is an esteemed divorce attorney and a certified divorce financial analyst in New York City and in Westchester. I'm actually of counsel to Lisa, and although you guys all know that I am a full-time online mediator and a giant fan of mediation, Lisa is not. Lisa is an incredible litigator. Lisa is the bulldog in the courtroom that we all want on our side when we have that case that just cannot be resolved in mediation. So I just wanted to take a couple of minutes and first of all, welcome you. Thank you so much for coming. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about you and how you decided to become a divorce litigator?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, Gabrielle. I'm really excited to be here and having this discussion with you. So I was in the fashion business first, and then I went through my own divorce. And as I proceeded through my own divorce, one of the things that I found most disturbing was not getting phone calls back, not receiving emails or information from my attorney. And I really felt that when you're going through the most stressful part of your life, meaning issues regarding your finances and your children, that you really need attorneys who can be responsive. And so I decided that I would be that person. I would be that person who would build a firm that would be most responsive to our clients' needs. So clients email us, 24/7. We don't always get back 24/7, but we try our very best to get back to clients as fast as possible. And most clients have our cell phone numbers and are texting and emailing. And today's Sunday, and I was texting and emailing with clients all morning. So
I absolutely, when I opened my law mediation practice, my whole thing was every single client should feel like they're my only client, even if I'm so busy. Nobody else should ever. They have enough stress, and so when dealing with us, we should be like something that's making them just feel better.
exactly,
So,
exactly.
so can you tell my listeners here, in what cases does litigation make sense? Like, tell us a little bit about why you might need to litigate, because talk about the tools that are available in litigation.
Sure. So when we first have our consult, one of the questions that I always ask people are to describe what their assets are and their income. And that means the assets that are both separate property assets of each spouse, and that means inheritances and gifts during the marriage, anything that they came into the marriage with that might still be traceable. And then I ask them for a list of the marital assets and income. Many spouses come to me who don't have that information. They don't really have the information as to what their spouse's income is or was. Sometimes they've never really looked at the tax return or even seen the tax return, although it's filed every year. Sometimes they have no idea where the assets are, or even though they earned the assets are entitled in their name. So they don't have access to the assets.
So what kind of
And
tools, I'm so sorry, what kind of tools do you have available to help them?
so we actually conduct an entire discovery of financial information. And we do that by starting to send out a notice for discovery, which is a list of documents that we're requesting. There are the beginning of the discovery process where we ask for a whole breadth of documents so that we can look at credit card statements, bank statements, contracts, perhaps any information about businesses, real estate, about, real estate appraisals, real estate evaluations, limited partnership interests, K1s, et cetera, restricted stock units, for example, award letters, deferred compensation information. And when we gather all of that information and the credit card statements and the tax returns, then we actually are able to put together a marital estate chart. And we are also able to track the income. So I might ask for at the beginning for the first 5 years of tax returns. After we've done all that, I'm going to likely have questions, a lot of questions. And so then we conduct what are called depositions, which are essentially information gathering sessions, but they're taken under oath. The spouse is sworn in. We're all, of course, on a Zoom doing it, but we are either on a Zoom or we're in a office. And I'm asking a variety of financial questions that relate to the documents that I have received, hopefully, because sometimes we can receive the
So
documents,
what
right?
if that's my next question for you. That all sounds really great, but what if you're dealing with, and I think quite frankly, the reason people often have to go to litigation is because they're dealing with someone who is impossible, whether they're a narcissist, I'm not a mental health professional, they're just a liar, or they're incredibly disorganized, or whatever what do you do to combat that? How can you get the information from that impossible X?
So first of all, we have the tools, as I just said. So you start with the net worth statement, right? That's our roadmap. And very often that net worth statement from that X to B is not necessarily filled out in completion. So it's just a beginning point, right? And I've had a lot of cases where, unfortunately, that literally we have found millions and millions of dollars after we've looked at that net worth statement, because, and it was like tracking breadcrumbs, right? A little bit here and a little bit here, and we track them, and we have found many, many millions of dollars. So that is the beginning. Then there's the discovery. Then there may be subpoenas that we have to send out because people are not cooperative. Now, I'm also going to add that very often we represent the moneyed spouse. And that too is an interesting point, because that moneyed spouse may have revealed every single thing, but he has a spouse on the other side who believes that his or her separate property is not really separate, right? So we have to show that information, right? We have to make sure that the other spouse starts to understand the breadth of the assets and doesn't feel that the spouse that we're representing isn't being transparent. That may be important to do in depositions as well, because it's really important that in order to resolve a case, in order to settle a case, that both parties feel like they understand the breadth of the assets and the income. So it works in both directions.
I can see how it works in both directions, because if there's mistrust because of some bad behavior in another way, a betrayal perhaps, or something like that, there may be a really big breakdown in the communication.
Exactly. You may find that your spouse has not been truthful in other areas. There may be infidelity, for example. All of those things can be looked at in terms of how they affect the finances. But the truth is that as the moneyed spouse, you need to make sure that you reveal all the information, and discovery is a good way to do that, and answering questions under oath, so that even if your spouse is not satisfied, their counsel feels satisfied that they have found the breadth of the assets, that they understand the income, and then they can help their client resolve the issues.
Such great information. I have one more question for you, and that is the million-dollar question. How do you tame that impossible ex who is the moneyed spouse and their impossible lawyer? Because as we know, oftentimes people retain lawyers who are good matches for their personalities. And so what do you do in that case?
We provide all the information. So we give a very detailed net worth statement, super detailed, down to when, where funds came from. If funds were transferred, we give the bank account information of where it was transferred from. So we start off by providing as much information. We make the process as organized as possible. So we create the charts. We make sure that all the discovery that they ask for is really responded to, and that the statements are organized when we turn them over, that they have the general ledgers and the award letters and the deferred compensation information, all of that we're willing to sign any authorizations, that we create the authorizations so that their attorney can send them to the companies, because we want to make sure that they feel confident and comfortable that they have all the information. And you have to be patient about that. I mean, the moneyed spouse has to be a bit patient, and sometimes that's difficult. But after we've given all of that, we then might take the other spouse, the non-moneyed spouse, through the deposition process. And I try, when I do that, to lay out all of my client's information. Like, do you understand that this was monies that he or she inherited during the marriage? Do you see that it came from this bank account to that bank account? Take a look at this statement. Can you identify it, right? These are all really important things to go through, so that the other spouse, who maybe was in the dark, understands the information.
But what about if you are representing the one who is in the dark? Do you wind up having to go to court in that case to show
Sometimes,
holes in the case? Yeah. And
sometimes,
are you able to
sometimes.
pierce that veil and get the truth to come out?
So we follow the breadcrumbs, right? I once, a couple of years ago, I had a deposition, and I had found probably $5 to $10 million. And I'll never forget, I asked the husband in that case, well, how was I supposed to find this information? How did you think I was going to find this information? I did this under oath. And his answer was something to the effect, well, you'll do what you keep doing, which is you'll keep sending the subpoenas, and you'll keep finding the information that way, because that seems to have worked very well for you.
Oh my God.
And that was
And it
his
worked.
thought process. So
Right.
it did work, right? Okay. Did we find every single dollar? Probably not.
Right.
Okay, probably not. But we found probably the lion's share of it. And we understood that we had followed every breadcrumb that we could. And there has to come to be an end at some point, right? And so there was an end. But keep in mind, if you are the non-moneyed spouse and you are trying to find the breadcrumbs, then you're going to be creating expenses, and you need to make sure that you are having legal fees paid for by the moneyed spouse. And if you're the moneyed spouse and you're trying to do this efficiently and effectively, you want to make it as transparent and as easy for your spouse to understand the finances.
Absolutely. It is always such a pleasure to talk to and work with you, Lisa. If anybody here would like to get in contact with you, what's the best way that they can find you?
So they can go to lisazeiderman.com, or they can go to my website at mzwnylaw.com, or my email, which is lz@mzw-law.com.
And if you enjoyed this conversation and would like to hear others like this, please don't forget to hit the subscribe for more divorce talk and more. And if you'd like to get in touch with me, I'm at GabrielleHartley.com.
Thanks, Gabrielle.
Thank you.